want to make a few quick points on why this wasn't an insurrection, and also support Jack Smith on this point, on why he didn't charge Trump with insurrection. So 2 days before January 6th, Trump personally authorized the use of up to 20,000 National Guard troops, okay? On January 5th, he put out a statement, and he said this on CNN's Town Hall. He told it to Caitlin Collins. He said, he put out a statement, stay peaceful, remain peaceful, respect our law enforcement, and respect our Capitol Police.
Trump didn't actually tweet that. His chief of staff did.
Okay.
And Trump did not authorize 20,000 troops. In fact, to the opposite, his defense secretary, Chris Miller, published a memo on January 4th that explicitly said that no National Guard troops could provide any assistance whatsoever, including equipment or even intelligence, to the Capitol Police.
Yeah, well, I disagree, and you could listen to Kash Patel's testimony to the Colorado court.
Yeah, well, I'm not believing anything Kash Patel says, first of all. And secondly, I've got the document. I mean, the whole world has seen it. You know, Chris Miller's document saying, you know, National Guard, you may not show up, is absolutely unambiguous. And he was the Secretary of Defense.
That day, he was authorized. That day, they authorized up to 350 troops from the D.C. area, I believe.
Nope.
But prior to that day, okay. All right, so Kash Patel's a liar, I guess.
Yes,
we'll pin it
absolutely.
up.
Absolutely.
Right.
And like I said, I've got the memo. I've got the memo.
Wait, lastly.
Kash Patel's also behind, you know, he's part of this whole 2,000 mules thing. I mean, you know, the lies. Well, anyway, back to you, Chad.
Kash Patel lied to the Colorado court. Why haven't they charged him with?
You'd have to ask the Colorado court. I have no idea.
Oh, okay. If he's such a liar, why haven't they charged him?
You know, I don't even know that he actually said that to the Colorado court, Chad. All I have is your assertion of it. But the fact of the matter is that the Secretary of Defense, working for Donald Trump, the acting Secretary of Defense, Chris Miller, issued a memo, and I encourage you to look for this memo on the internet. You can easily find it. Issued a memo on January 4th saying there will be no participation by the National Guard in any defense of the Capitol. In fact, I think I've got it here, and I'll read it to you. I mean, it's
okay. Well, again, then somebody ought to go put a set of leg shackles and handcuffs on Kash Patel for lying to the Colorado courts, because that's.
Well, I'm sure Kash Patel isn't the only one who's saying those kind of things.
Okay, and then the final piece, real quick.
Okay.
And I enjoyed talking with you. Nobody, including yourself, and I watched the sham cable show, the January 6th hearing. Not one time I heard you or anybody else mention Trump saying that we're going to go peacefully and patriotically let our voices be heard. Not once. I've never, in the past year, I've never heard you say that. And I've never heard MSNBC say that. And the January 6th committee never once showed that clip.
Here is the memo from Christopher Miller, the acting Secretary of Defense. It's dated January 4th, 2021. If you just plug in Chris Miller January 4th memo, you'll find it real quickly on the internet. Memorandum for Secretary of the Army, employment guidance. This memorandum responds to your January 4th memorandum regarding the District of Columbia request for National Guard support in response to planned demonstrations on January 6, 2021. You are authorized to approve the requested support subject to my guidance below and subject to consultation with the Attorney General as required by Executive Order 11485. So he says, you're authorized to do this. So that's probably what Kash Patel was saying. But with these caveats. Now, here are the bullet points. Without my subsequent personal authorization, the National Guard is not authorized the following. Number one, to be issued weapons, ammunition, bayonets, batons, or ballistic protection equipment such as helmets and body armor. So, number one, you've got to, if you're going to help the Capitol Police, you've got to do so basically naked. You got to do so in your street clothes. Number two, to interact physically with protesters except when necessary in self-defense or defense of others, consistent with the DNC-NG rules for the use of force. Number three, to employ any riot control agents. You may not control the riot at all. You may not use tear gas or anything like that. Number four, to share equipment with law enforcement agencies. You may not help the Capitol Police. Number five, to use intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance assets or to conduct ISR or incident awareness and assessment activities. In other words, you may not help the Capitol Police when they're under attack and by providing them with any information at all. Number 6, I think I'm up to employ helicopters or any other air assets. You may not use your hardware. Number 7, to conduct searches, seizures, arrests, or other similar direct law enforcement activity. You may not help in any way in the form of what could be called law enforcement. And finally, to seek support from any non-DC National Guard units. And you may not even get help from, because you'll recall, you had the Republican governor of Maryland was trying to deploy his National Guard to Washington, D.C., and the Secretary of Defense, Chris Miller, prevented it from happening. The memo says, in all these cases, the D.C. National Guard will remain under the operational and administrative command and control of the commanding general of the DCNG, who reports to the Secretary of Defense through the Secretary of the Army. In other words, to me. You may employ the DCNG Quick Reaction Force only as a last resort and in response to a request from an appropriate civil authority. So, there you go. I mean, I just read you the whole memo.
Okay, I think you're missing my point. My point was that Trump was of the mindset, and this is what we're getting back to, of the mindset of whether he was able to carry that out, whether that order was ever to be carried out or not. My point, and I'm trying to make it, is I'm trying to illustrate the mindset of this whole insurrection.
You mean when he said you got to fight like hell or you're not going to have a country anymore?
Well, let's go back and we can go through all. I'm
not going to go through any of it, Chad. You've made your point. I've made my point. I'm going to move along.